Hi, John Maxwell here. Welcome to the Go Big series. I have on the set with me today some very important people, good friends of mine, and they're going to become good friends of yours. I have Don Yaeger right beside me. 12 years he's been associate editor at Sports Illustrated. He's interviewed everybody in the sports world. He's written 25 books. 9 of them are New York Times bestsellers. You've done a tremendous book on Walter Payton as he was closing his life out. Of course, the legendary John Wooden, the great basketball coach. And Don is going to be doing the interviewing, and I'm very excited about you being here with us because you have so much experience in the sports world, and you know what Go Big is all about. So great to have you with us, Don.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
And then Mr. Rick Hendrick is, well, Rick, you're my friend. That's who he is. We've done a lot of work together. Of course, you have your automotive dealerships, over 120 across the country, and the John Maxwell team has the privilege of doing leadership with you, and thank you for that opportunity. And then, of course, you got the sports division in NASCAR, which is absolutely huge, and everybody kind of knows about that. And I'm so glad, Rick, thank you, because he's our partner in Go Big. And this is his place. This is his beautiful car museum. And he has supplied just what we need to really put this show together. And you are a friend. But we're so glad to have you as a sponsor. We're so glad to be attached to the Hendrick Motorsports people because you're quality people. And we're wanting to put for you a wonderful quality series that'll help you love sports, but also understand leadership better. Chase Elliott. We've got the kid on the set today. We're going to be doing a lot of interviewing of athletes and sports figures. I've got a feeling Chase may be the youngest one we do in the whole series because 20 years old, rookie this year, having a great year. Congratulations on that, Chase.
Thank you.
You know what's interesting about you is, of course, your father, Bill Elliott, a legend in driving. You have Jeff Gordon's car, a legend in driving. To your left is a legend in the brand of sports racing. My gosh, kid, you're just surrounded by legends.
Very lucky. Very lucky, for sure.
You are lucky, and it speaks of you, though. It speaks of the fact that you would be in that seat because those legends just aren't going to let anybody in the seat. And so that's who you have on the set today, and we're so excited that you're with us. And Don, you kind of take away, you do interviewing, and if it's okay, every once in a while I'm going to jump in and do a little leadership commentary and just kind of pull out the leadership principles because Go Big, it's all about real athletes and real leadership and real sports experiences, real coaches. It's just going to help you to flesh out something that you love, leadership and sports, and put them together, and we're excited about it.
Awesome.
So, Don, my friend, take off. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you, John. Chase, I want to start with you. You're 20 years old, as John said, and you work in a sport where you are surrounded, your entire organization is surrounded by people who are older than you and have much more experience, even in your industry. I'm wondering, how do you lead in that space where you're stepping into a place where many around you are older than you, and how do you make sure that do you talk different? What do you do to make sure you can lead in that space?
For sure, I think it's definitely a good question and something I've often thought about over the past few years. I've been so lucky to be in the positions I've been in and having a great group of people around me. I've grown up around people that have been older than me as I've grown up. So I think the biggest thing is for me just wanting to do your job like you want to do it and showing up each weekend and you giving it your all and you doing what you feel like is the best you can do for them. I think they're going to appreciate that the most. If you show up and they see that you're giving it your all and you're trying to do your job, I think that's the best way to lead. And obviously for them, you're in a tough spot because you don't want to come off wrong being 20 years old trying to maybe lead too much to people that are older than you. So it's definitely, I think, a tough spot sometimes. But like I said, I feel like if you show up and just show them that you're there to do your job and you're there 110%, I think is the best way to show them that you can be a leader and do the way you feel like you need to do it.
And you know what, Don, as he spoke of being around people older than him, who've already proven to be a success. Chase, what impresses me about you as a young leader is the fact that you understand you have a lot to learn. and that, leaders are followers before they're leaders. And if you're not a good follower, you'll never be a good leader. And you lead best when you know how to follow best. And it's obvious to me, although you're very young, you understand that there's a place, there's a position, and there's time to lead, because when you're on that track, you've got to be leading. But at the same sense, there's also a time to listen and glean from other leaders. And that's very impressive for a young man your age to understand. You've got greatness around you, and it looks to me like you're going to just take the most advantage of that greatness by having a kind of a listening heart. I'm impressed with that.
You have to give his family a lot of credit. I met with Chase when he was about 14, and I've known his dad, and I would have won more championships if his dad had worked with me. But just talking to Bill and the plan he had for Chase, and then meeting Chase and watching Chase, he's way mature than his age.
Yeah.
He's more mature than some of the guys I see in their 30s. And he always takes it on himself. He's never satisfied. He always carries the team, where a lot of people depend on the team. Chase is trying to carry the team. And he's learned that at a very early age. And when I met him and he was 16, I said, this kid's way more mature than his age. Yeah. And then you see him and the way he handles himself outside of the car. And that's important in our sport, how you work with sponsors and what do you say on TV? Do you make a young man's mistake? Do you say the wrong things? Do you put the car in a really bad position and get out and complain? He hadn't made any of those mistakes. He doesn't make the mistakes that a young guy makes. He's way more mature, and that's why he's so successful this year. He's just very driven. He's got that foundation. His family brought him up in the right culture, and he just fit our organization like a glove.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Doesn't happen that much in life, you know?
No. And when you have a young star like that, you just think, boy, what a future this kid has.
Right. You know, Rick, you may have just started the answer to the question I had for you, which was, you have a habit of bringing in young talent. You are that leader who's willing to invest and take chances on some young talent. What do you look for when you're trying to bring in that? Obviously, you want them to be fast, right? But what else?
Well, you know, it's a fit factor with the organization and the other drivers. You have created a culture in the company, and the people get along, work together, and they have to be well-rounded. They have to have all of the tools to go to the ultimate level. You know, you've got to be able to work with people. You've got to have the talent to drive, but there's so much more to it than that. You got to be smart. You got to know when to race and when you not put the car in a position to tear it all to pieces. But more than that, can you get along with the crew? Can you get along with the other drivers? Do you fit the mold that we've kind of created in the company? Can you follow a Jimmy Johnson or a Jeff Gordon or a Dale Earnhardt? Are you going to be a rebel? Are you going to contribute? And it's hard to answer all of those questions, but you can normally watch a young guy come along, and when you see that they've got the whole package, that they can do all of that, and they have talent, then you try to hang on to them because you don't want to make a mistake. Yeah. But you don't want somebody that comes into the company that maybe has all the talent in the world, but they're disruptive, they don't contribute, they're a problem, they distract from the other guys, and you're constantly dealing with having to put your arm around them and coach them through different situations. And my experience is, if they're a bad apple, they're going to be a bad apple all the way through their career. So
sure.
I don't have time for that.
Sure. Well, and I think the key, Don, his first statement to you when you asked the question is it has to be the right fit. Mm-hmm. And I remember, as you said that, I think of Jim Collins, put the right people on the bus. And obviously, you have led such great teams for so many years. You know what that fit is. And I think that leaders always understand that not everybody works. And sometimes I even think they probably maybe pass on maybe even a greater talent because it's not the right fit. And I remember John Wooden, of course, who you knew so much and wrote books about. I remember John Wooden tell me one time that he had a great star on his team, and the star was always was selfish. And he said, Coach, let me play. And Coach Wooden looked at me and said, what, you're the best player on the team, but the team doesn't play best when you're on it. And I think that's what we're talking about, that fit. And Chase, it's obvious that as a 20-year-old, you found that fit. It's kind of good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You talk, Mr. Hendrick, about putting your arm around somebody and knowing when it is you need to guide them a little bit. I was here on your campus just a few months ago for an interview with Jimmy Johnson. And it was, and he shared with me a story that I think has some legend around it, about a period of time when he and Chad, his crew chief, were not getting along. In fact, they weren't even speaking well to each other, and it was causing friction on the entire team. And you stepped in and said, if we're going to save this relationship, I have to do it. And you huddled them together over a pretty famous meeting that involved milk and cookies and Mickey Mouse plates, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I'd love your version of that story.
Well, I want to hear this, too.
Chase is going to learn right now,
I hope
aren't
I
you?
never have to have that meeting with you, buddy.
I hope not.
But no, we had success right out of the gate with Chad and Jimmy. And then all of a sudden there was friction. And, they were struggling a little bit, but they were at each other. And I talked to them both independently, and they said, I don't know what's wrong, and I would listen on the radio, all chippy, And so I got them together, and I said, guys, here's the deal. You're both super talented, and you can't seem to, and everything you're telling me, each one of you, is so small. It's just, so if you want to act like kids, let's have a little downtime. So I said, well, I've got some milk and cookies, and I had Mickey Mouse plates, and when I put the plates out, they just started laughing, and I said, I kind of like cookies anyway, and so I said, after this, we'll have time out and sit on the floor, and they really started laughing, and I said, do you see how silly this is? I mean, why you're so close to success, and you can't communicate and sit down, just lay it out there and fix it. And they started talking, and I sat there and listened, didn't say a word, and each one would tell me what the other guy was doing that rubbed them wrong, and they would say, well, I didn't know that was bothering you, and I thought, how trivial. And they fixed it. We were at the point of separating, and we would have lost all those championships. And,
Six.
Yeah.
Six.
Yeah, so
titles. Right.
Which, again, Rick, it's such a leadership trait to have what I call the difficult conversations. Leading is easy when leading is easy. I always tell people, when you've got momentum and the band's moving down the street the right way, it's just get out in front and you don't really have to lead them. But leading is hard when leadership's hard. And this was a situation where you knew that without leadership, this team was going to dissolve. And somebody had to have that difficult meeting, that difficult conversation. And Don, one of the things that's so beautiful about this is leaders, we talk about casting vision. Leaders are very visual. And the cookies and the milk and the Mickey Mouse thing, just to look at it, was for them to laugh.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
I love it. It's one of my
And
favorite
then
stories.
it's kind of like,
yeah.
that's us.
Yeah.
That's us. I mean, it's like you put a mirror up there,
We're being children.
Huh? Yeah. And we're children, and we're squabbling over little things that really don't matter. And how fun for you, Chase, to hear the story from the master.
That is.
Hey, and understand, you never want to have a milk and cookies, Mickey Mouse conversation with
If you ever walk in his
Mr.
office
Hendrick.
and there's milk and cookies on the table, things are bad.
It's a bad day.
You say, ooh, I know what's coming. I know what's coming.
I'm going to bet I never have to have that with him.
You don't think so?
If it leads to 6 championships, that might be a good route.
Okay. You're okay? All right. Okay.
In fact, I think he's buying milk and cookies right now.
That's
Sitting-
right. When you get that first win in your belt, tell them bring on the milk and
That's right.
cookies, right? Huh? Absolutely.
Chase, while in NASCAR, the driver is the only one on the field of play, right? You're the most visible person there. It truly is a team sport in every way. How do you see your role in the team? What do you see as the driver? What would you compare it to for those who maybe need an understanding of what's expected of you as a leader?
Well, I think it's a good question, and definitely racing, and a lot of times gets overlooked. But I think it's as much of a team sport as anything is, and with all the hands and all the things that go into what we do at the racetrack each weekend starts long before we get there. And we talked a little bit about trying to create a little bit of that luck that you have at the racetrack here. There's 600 employees here. I think when I first came here and was here the first time, it was 500. So now it's grown to 600 in just a few years, which is pretty incredible. That just goes to show you how fast things are changing and how much the sport's evolving. That's what it takes, and that's to support 4 race teams for us. There's obviously a bunch of people just in the 524 shop, and the 4888 shop has an equal amount of people in it, and then distribute amongst the engine shop, chassis shop, R&D department. So it all has to work, and there's an awful lot of hands that go onto a race car. To go from a metal rack to rolling at the racetrack each weekend is pretty incredible that all that starts and finishes right here. So for me, we have about 10 guys or so that travel on our road crew each week, which is who you work with the most and who you see the most often. But it's far beyond just those 10 guys, and there's a lot of people that go into it, and none of them need to get overlooked because it's all important, it all matters, and it all makes a difference. So just trying to grow that relationship with Alan Gustafson, our crew chief, and like we talked about before, learning by how he goes about his business, and trying to grow that relationship with him, and just trying to work together in a sense that you get to a point where you believe in each other. And I think that's often goes far beyond just saying it, that, hey, you're doing a good job, or hey, let's get going, or pick it up, or try to be a cheerleader. I think, showing that, whether it's body language or what they say to other people, and having a true, just support and belief that, the other person can do it. I think that goes a long way, and that's not something that can be grown overnight. That takes time, and I've had a very lucky chance to work with a good guy, so I'm excited to move forward with him.
So you're saying, Chase, when you're driving and the cameras are all on the driver, basically, until you go in for a pit stop or something. When you're driving, they see one person, but it's 10, 12 people there on the track supporting you, 600 people in the company supporting you. So this is not a, boy, I did it thing, is it? We did it.
No, for sure. And you hear guys get out of the car and they say, well, I want to thank everybody at the shop and everybody at the engine shop and the chassis shop. That's being very serious, and that's no joke.
It's not being nice.
No, that's not being nice. That's no joke, because those people do a lot of work.
Sure.
And there's so many, like I said, there's so many hands that go into it. And you think about just how much goes through an individual's brain, everything that goes through your brain on any given day. You're talking 600 people worth, and a lot of times, I'd like to know this at some point. We need to figure this out, how many hands go, touch a race car from the day it starts to the time that we roll it on the truck. I think it'd be something I'd like to find out, but I know it goes through a lot of different departments, and that's pretty incredible to see the finishing product.
Well, wasn't it John Wooden said, you know him better than I, but 10 hands?
10 hands to make a basket.
10 hands to make a basket in basketball. And hey, in Hendrick Motorsports, it takes 1,200 hands. 1,200 hands to win a race. How about that?
Chase is being way too modest about his role, because the driver's like the quarterback. If the team sees the quarterback flinching, then nobody does a job like this should. If the quarterback's got tremendous confidence, then everybody kind of flows around him. And Chase gives unbelievable feedback. Like at Michigan, we were running 220, the fastest times into the corner. Now you got 40 guys with you, around you, in front of you, on your bumper, and they can make you loose and they can spin you out. At that kind of speed, you're nervous and tense. And he was unbelievable, like a computer giving the team feedback. Never excited, always saying, car's pretty good, but I need this, I need that. And you could see it in the team. They were just, he was running up front, and they were just so energized. And I've seen situations where the driver was complaining and groaning and blaming the car, the worst I've ever seen. And you see the crew just come down. And they're not going to do 10-second, 11-second pit stops when all that's happening. The
Yeah.
crew chief can't make good decisions unless he gets good information. So they got to communicate, and he's a leader. I mean, he sets the tone, and for no experience and being as young as he is, it's just amazing. That's why he's doing so well. He's got tremendous talent, but he gives the team unbelievable feedback. And that's where Jimmy Johnson has been so good. He can tell you what the car's doing and what you need to do. And his dad was that way. His dad was probably one of the best chassis guys that ever drove a race car. And I think growing up with his dad and working on cars together, he picked up on that. And the other thing he does is he's never satisfied. He'll run second, and he'll get out and tell the team, I think I let you down. You know, he always expects to do better. And I'm like, man, second place, your first time here. You know, the best car I've got. Enjoy it. Enjoy it a little bit. But he's special. But that communication deal in sports, in the car, is so important because somebody's got to lead that team.
Absolutely.
And there's only one guy driving the car. So if he's rattled and he's complaining, no matter how strong the crew chief is to try to lead the troops, they're listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, not only what you say, but how you say it.
That's right.
And I think you were really helping us understand that when Chase talks to his crew chief and the team, he's constantly letting them know that he's comfortable, he believes in what they're doing, and it's more of a team effort instead of talking down and like you said, complaining. And again, leaders always realize that they're not the only one in the picture.
Yeah.
And when you think you're the only one in the picture, then you can do anything to anyone else, and it doesn't really matter. But the moment that you realize it's a team effort, then you've got to give it a team perspective and a team attitude, and that you're just doing it good. It's a great example of it, though.
You know, Rick, if they're the quarterback, you are the quarterback of quarterbacks, right? You are the
He's the Godfather.
He's the Godfather.
I'm the Monday morning quarterback.
The Monday morning quarterback.
Monday,
okay.
I can tell them what they should have done Sunday.
And you're never wrong.
That's right.
Right? You're never wrong. It's pretty impressive.
With about 50 million other NASCAR cars.
So, but you manage this team, this organization here in Hendrick Motorsports with a lot of egos, right? I mean, you got some big names, big egos: Casey, Kane, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr. You got Chase. I'm not putting you in the ego category, but how do you manage? You got high performers, great ego. How do you manage as a leader all of those egos? How do you keep all of those things moving in the right direction?
I think we've stressed forever we're stronger together, and you have to lean on each other, and you are going to need help from someone else at the time. It's sometime. And the drivers, when we get together and debrief, we try to talk about what each car is doing, but you want them to have a relationship. And Jimmy, not long ago, said, hey, let's go have a couple days away and fish or do something, just the drivers and you. And I said, okay. And we went and we did things, spent time together and built a relationship. And we, whether it's a crew chief or driver, we built a culture here that we do it together and try not to let anybody get off the reservation, and believe that you can tear this thing down as easy as we can make it successful. And if you blow it up over here, it's going to affect everybody over there. And just constantly staying in touch with what's important, and creating a winning culture, but knowing that you got to depend on all these other people. So don't say anything, don't do anything, don't get too big for your britches, because you're going to fail. And don't be pointing your fingers at everybody else when there's a problem, because you're going to have a problem too. And I think it all starts with the fit factor with the people you bring into the program that have that kind of basic ability to get along with others, and you don't bring a rebel in that's always had problems somewhere else, and he tries to convince you that
no matter how talented,
no matter how talented he is,
sure,
you're not going to let one guy destroy the whole place. And I've seen that in other sports, and And we've been through some of that here, and it's just, and what I've found, if you create the right culture, the people will weed them out. I can't
That's
tell you
right.
how many times they tell me, he just didn't fit.
Yep.
He was just a problem. He was, stirring it up for everybody. And so we let him go, no
Yeah.
matter how good he is.
You know, another thing, because I know you so well, Rick, but you wouldn't say this because you're a very humble person, is that you really model servant leadership. And it's true, it's not only true on your racing side, it's also true on your automotive group with all of your car dealerships. You are the founder, you're the owner, you're the man. And yet you're serving, you're giving, you're caring. You never put yourself in a high position. You never think of yourself higher than others. And I've watched you model that. And in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, Don, I talk about the law of the picture. People do what people see. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the reasons Hendrick has been so successful in sports racing and also in automotive area is because you model a servant leader. So they don't need to look around and kind of say, what's a servant leader look like? They just look at you. And I think that goes right from you right down to all of your teams and all of your automotive dealerships. I think it just goes right down, and they see it in you.
Well, I think it's respect, and you validated what I've always believed when, you taught us servant leadership. And I told you that you validated what I always practiced growing up on the farm. You can't do it all yourself. You have to depend on people, and you got to take care of people. And I think they don't want to let me down. I don't want to let them down. They know we care about each other. And you can do that and be high performance. You don't have to, you can care, and I believe that you can get more out of people when they know you care about them, and you do it together. And you and I talked about, you can't sink half a ship. People have to believe that it's got to be good for everyone, and everyone we're stronger together. And, it's just keeping the folks focused and believing in the culture of the company.
Explain you can't sink half a ship. I loved your description
Isn't
of
that a
that to me
great
earlier.
phrase? I've got two now.
I love it.
Create your luck and can't sink a half a ship.
Website. Somebody, let's go to work on that.
The book's getting written right now.
Explain that, because I love that phrase and your description of it.
Well, in the automotive stores, I tell the guys, if we have a couple of deals that are really struggling and 3 or 4 that are really rocking, if things get tough, those 2 or 3 deals can bring the whole deal down. So don't just think about your situation. Think about the overall situation. We've got to make the overall deal strong. And that's the same thing in racing. We'll say, if you got 4 teams, they need to contribute. And if one team's struggling, let's all try to help them. Let's don't build a silo, and I'm only interested in what's good for me. Mm-hmm. Because if that other team goes down and those resources go away, it's going to affect you. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, remember that. It's better when we're all strong and we spread the best practices throughout the company. Mm-hmm. And we try to make it all better. If you make it all better, it'll make each one better. Yep. So, that's my
I like it. I like it. Chase, I want to ask you, on any given race day, there are 3 dozen other teams or more on a track out there trying to do the same thing you're doing, right? Win and finish first. How much of your prep time as you're getting ready to go to the racetrack is spent scouting? And explain how you watch video, or what do you do to prepare yourself, knowing about your opponent and also understanding a little bit more about you?
Yep, for sure. Our kind of, I guess, what we do is we meet every Tuesday here at the shop. We have a morning meeting where we individually meet with the team. For us, I get together with Alan Gustafson, our crew chief, like I said, and the 24 group. We'll sit down and talk about the past weekend, and that's really kind of where the next weekend starts. We'll review the past week, maybe go through the highs and lows, what we felt like was good, what was bad, what did we struggle with, where did we stack up, what were other guys doing. And you kind of really just talk through all that stuff. It's all documented. Basically our whole conversation is there so that when we come back, we go to a lot of races twice a year, So when we go back to that race in the fall or later this summer, whatever it may be, we can sit back and talk about it. We can look through what we talked about the past race and say, hey, we struggled with this in the spring. We need to focus on this going back, and maybe that'll give us a little bit of a head start going into the weekend. But after we talk about the prior race, we start talking about the upcoming week, and in that we might talk about videos that I may want to see, or things that maybe Jeff and Alan struggled with last year, things they maybe did really, really well, what their strong points were, and kind of what just general challenges of a racetrack may be. So for me, they do a really, really good job, and I have a great group of guys that they work really hard at putting things up on a database for me to see and look at, or I can look at it from anywhere. That doesn't matter where I am. So you can go online, look at videos. They'll put up in-car footage of whether it may be our teammates that had an in-car camera at the last race, or say if you can find some good footage on the internet of somebody else that maybe won the race or had a really good run. So there's always something to be looking at, and definitely looking at that footage is important. I plan to do.
What are you looking for when you're looking at that footage?
Just anything you can find. I mean, obviously, you look at it from watching it on TV, and a lot of times it just looks like we're going in circles. But when you really get down and start diagnosing the things that are going on, and those onboard cameras really are something that I like to watch a lot. And you'll see the TV footage. They'll pan over, and you'll go on board with the driver, maybe see some of the things they're doing inside the car. How much to turn the steering wheel, where are they letting off the throttle, are they dragging the brake further into the corner, are they overlapping throttle and brake, just some of those small tendencies that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when we're talking tenths of a second, that goes a long way. So anything you can find there to help and is definitely good, and it all matters. So try not to let good information go by is big.
Yeah, it all matters, doesn't it? There's no such thing as a insignificant thing.
That's right.
And one of the things I think leaders do really well that you talked about there, Chase, is the fact that you said really our week begins in that Tuesday morning meeting when we look at the last race. And, leaders understand you really can't go forward with confidence toward tomorrow until you have settled and fixed yesterday. And that's a perfect example of a leader who understands not only the power of vision where you're going, but the power of reflection where you've been. And you learn from your reflection. And I've often said reflection turns experience into insight. And we all have experiences, but only those that reflect pull the insight out of those experiences. And the more that you do it on the back end, the more, of course, you're prepared on the front end. So yesterday is so key to what you're going to be able to do tomorrow. And I just love that. I mean, he's a 20-year-old kid. He said it all begins in a Tuesday morning meeting as we reflect on that last race and figure out what can we do better. And that 1/10 of a second, as well as I do, that could be the race.
It does. It all matters, and it's hard to. I wish I could give you a more clear answer of what you're looking for, but it could be anything. I mean, it really could, and it could be different things depending upon the track. It could be something as simple as a restart, or what a guy does different on a restart than the guy ahead of him. So it all adds up, and like you said, starting those Tuesday morning meetings, we all start individually, and then around lunchtime, that's when we all meet up. The four drivers, 4 crew chiefs, competition director, engine shop guys, our whole group, Mr. Hendrick's in there a lot of times as well, and we'll sit down together, talk about our problems openly as a group, and then kind of share our thoughts and what we feel like we did well, what we feel like we didn't do well, or where we need to improve as a whole. So trying to get that individual idea, understanding of what we need, where we want to be, and then talk about it generally, as a team and as an organization as we move forward is big as well.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines is, "Feedback is the breakfast of champions." Right?
That's a good one.
And if you can add that to your book. But if you but I mean, that's it, right? You're starting with feedback, and you're eating that up first before you go out to compete next.
Well, a 20-year-old could be doing a lot of things other than studying
on the internet
sport.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, it's a commitment to excellence that he has that drives him to just learn more and more and more, which is when I said he was experienced beyond his years.
Absolutely.
Because he's put so much effort in it.
Yeah. Rick, I once had an NBA coach tell me that I was writing his book, and he told me that the greatest example of teamwork in sports is a pit stop in a NASCAR race. In fact, it was so important to him that he loaded up while we were working on the book his starting 5, which was pretty unique, right? A bunch of 7-footers, and we went to a race and we stood in the pit. He arranged for everybody in the crews to watch, his players to watch how a pit comes together. Tell me about the teamwork required in a great pit stop, and why and how that can make how the fractional difference of some great teamwork can change the outcome completely.
Well, it's when you're racing and you all come in the pits, if you can pick up 2 or 3 spots, and we've won races and lost races in the pits, and you raced all day and you led all the laps, and there's a caution with 10 to go, and you come in, and first you got to make the right decision: 2 tires, 4 tires, or no tires. That's the crew chief's responsibility. But those guys going over the wall, there's tremendous pressure on them. I mean, they know that they could win or lose a race for the team by the speed that they get the work done. And if they go too fast and make a mistake, that's a problem. If they leave something loose, then that's a problem. So they got to do it right, and they got to do it quick. And we've got guys that can practice and are unbelievable, but you get them out in front of 6 million, 8 million people on TV and 100,000 people, and they choke. Right. So they've got to be able to perform under pressure. And so you have to select the right people, athletes, hand-eye coordination, big guys that can move quickly with gas cans. It's a tremendous amount of work, all the way down to the pit guns being a little bit faster, but not too fast. And so it's something we spend a lot of time and effort on. We have a combine every year around the country, and we have guys that played baseball. We have guys that were wrestlers. Wrestlers are good. College wrestlers are good tire carriers. Baseball players are good hand-eye coordination guys for the changers, and big linebackers are good for gas men. But then you got to get them to train and work together, and it's got to be almost like a symphony. They've got to learn the techniques of how to get around, how to get down, and it's a tremendous amount of work.
And you practice it all year round, right?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time, yeah.
For 10 seconds.
Yeah.
10 seconds.
For 10, 11 seconds.
Right.
Which again shows you that when the game is on the line, the one that's going to win is the one who's the best prepared.
Preparation.
It removes the pressure. I was with Jack Nicklaus one time. We were talking, and I asked him about those 4 or 5 foot putts for the U.S. Open or for a major championship. I said, "Did you feel pressure?" And he said, "Really?" He said, "I didn't," because he said, I've done those putts 10,000 times. He said, "It wasn't my first time doing this," and he said, "The practice and the preparation, when I get over that putt," I said, "I've done this 10,000 times." And he said that removed the pressure. And again, all week long, 52 weeks a year, practicing for something that's 10, 11 seconds that will make all the difference in the world. And there again, in leadership, there is no small thing.
Mm-hmm. Everything has to work together. And, you're only as good as you got to be better than it can't have any weaknesses, and and that's one of the things the guys try to do is we don't try to cover when we have a problem. We don't try to cover it up. We bring it out, put it on the table, and how can we make it better? If it's a pit crew guy, if it's an aero problem, if it's an engine shop problem, whatever it is, if everybody's so sensitive you can't talk about it, you'll never fix it. You'll just ignore it and hope it'll get better. And
that's the weakest answer as a leader, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Chase, you obviously as a young driver, you probably get tired of us calling you young driver in this session here, but in 5 years it'll all be different. Tell me, mentors. Who have you sought out as mentors? People you want to learn from. How have you worked on that mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the first guy that comes to mind is my dad, and I think that's an easy answer for me. I've grown up around him. He's obviously what sparked my interest in racing, and I'm kind of one of those guys. I like to learn by example. Some guys like cheerleading and people to cheer them on and continue to try to pump them up. I'm more of a guy who likes to listen and watch how people go about their business. And try to respect that and learn that way. A lot of times you can learn more by what people actually do than what they tell you to your face. So, for me, I think obviously my dad is one. I've got 3 great teammates here that I certainly look up to now, and that I've looked up to for a long time. And it's very weird to be teammates with the guys I'm teammates with now. It's incredible, and definitely lucky to be where I am. Jeff, I still consider a teammate. He's been involved this year a lot with our team and offering help any way he can give it. So, those are the first ones that comes to my mind. There's obviously a lot of guys that, as I've grown up racing and done a lot of short track racing, some really, really big influences there. Some guys that definitely have a lot of respect for and I really owe a lot to. I don't think I'd be sitting here without some of them and what they've done. And obviously Mr. Hendrick is one for me. And I ask myself all the time, I'm still trying to figure out why he wanted to help me when he did. So very thankful for that, and just trying to make the most of a great opportunity here is the biggest thing.
I'm very thankful. I helped him.
Of course you are. Well, you know how to pick your father, of course, legendary driver, and you learn by example, Chase. What's the most important thing that he showed you in racing?
Man, that's tough. For me, I think if you're, and he showed this to me at a young age, if you're going to show up to the race and you're going to be there and give it your 110%. For me, it definitely when you're a kid and you're running around the racetrack and you're going go-kart racing, it's easy to be, caught up in all the other things that go on at the racetrack. And there's so much mess, I'm sure, just like there is in other sports, so you can get caught up in at the racetrack each week. And for me, when I show up, I try to make it a point that I'm there for one thing and one thing only. And I think there's a lot of things you can get caught up in. And I know at a young age he got on. I remember specifically we were at a go-kart race. I was pretty young, and we were playing football or whatever, and it's the night of the race. And look, he said, I'm not mad at you. I'm not, he's never been forceful. He's never pushed racing upon me by any means, but racing's always been my decision and what I've wanted to do. And I think because of that, he wants to push me to try to be the best I can be. And we were messing around one night at the racetrack, throwing footballs before the race. He said, now look, son, if you're going to be here and we're going to race, then we're going to race. Well, we're not here to
it's not a football game.
to mess around. We're right, and I know at a young age sometimes that can be taken the wrong way, but I think that applies all throughout as you go, whether it's playing games when you're at a go-kart track or who knows what it is down the road at a cup race these days. All the things that go on outside the race car, you can get into whatever you want to get into. So I think when you're there, be there. Be there 110%. I think the people around you respect that, and certainly I think that's going to offer you the best result. And try to do what you're there to do ultimately, and that's try to win.
That's beautiful.
It's a great
It's a great example too that your father gave you.
Absolutely. Rick, I know we've got time for just one more question here, but I wanted to ask you, in our conversation before we got started today, I share with you, I've studied a lot about you because I'm fascinated by the culture you built here. And culture is something you can easily have 40 years ago when you buy your first dealership and you got 5 employees, but now you got 11,000. How do you keep that moving? How do you continue to build that culture when it explodes as it has for you?
I just think that's something I refuse to give up on. That if I always have said this. I went back to my notes. I spoke at the Automotive News World Congress in 1977, and I said I put my people first, and I believe in employee satisfaction. And if your employees are happy, they'll make your customers happy. And I believe in giving them the tools to support them, keeping the place clean and neat, and being professional, and grow your people. And those were notes from back then. And I look at things I've said in meetings, and John was at one of our meetings, and I drive that hard and try to create a winning culture, but a culture of taking care of each other, doing good in the community, and having our people not just believe it, but help build it. And,
That's right.
And when I have grown to the size we've gotten to, our market area, I picked the people to run the market areas that have that same philosophy. If they're not good people person, they don't take care of the people, if they don't have the track record of believing that what I believe and what the company is founded on, then they're not going to be representing us. They can't lead if they don't believe. If you do that, if you bring someone from the outside, and we have brought some people from the outside that have worked, some have not. And you never know a guy till you get him in the trenches if he really believes in the philosophy that the company has. But again, the guys will weed them out, just like they do here, and they'll say they don't fit. And I can always tell when I walk in a dealership whether the leader there has instilled the culture that we want in the company. I can see it in the people. I can see it in their smile.
But you talked about the importance of disciples, too, and having people at their
Well, that's when guys that have grown up in the company, that have moved up in the ranks, and I said they're like disciples. They're out, spreading the word, and they use the history of the company. We have a new facility that's got a timeline of the company and videos, and the guys talking about how we've done it together. And it's a history of relationships and people that have grown up in the company. And when new people come in, they can see that there's opportunity, but they know how it started, how it was built, and then we can tell if they want to be a part of it. And when the best thing that can happen to me is when I'm interviewing someone, and they say, I know this guy that works here. He's always talked about what a great place it is, and I've always wanted to work here. And that just makes me feel good. That's a reputation that you have in the marketplace, because people have options. They can work anywhere. There's plenty of jobs out there, but you want people to want to be involved in something that's special and that they want to grow it and take it forward. So, if guys don't believe it, just like when John comes and teaches us, or we get the reports from our people and some of the surveys, and we go to work and say, this guy's doing it right. This guy's got some work to do. He's not connecting with his people. He's not communicating with his people. And here are the results. They don't feel connected. So you got to work on it. But the thing that we've always done is we refuse to alter it. If we've got to change our business philosophy to do things that it's going to hurt us, we just don't do it. I mean, it's not worth it, because it could just, it could tank the whole deal.
Absolutely. And leaders, and you've done this so well over the years, when he started off with 5, he was the culture carrier. Everybody saw him. Everybody worked around him. Every day they saw Mr. Hendrick, so it's kind of like we know what to do. Right. But when you get to 11,000, he can't be that person alone. And he has to have culture carriers. He has to have missionaries out there carrying that culture for him. Tom Arrington's a good friend of mine. He's founder of Prasco. And we were flying on his plane going to a University of Kentucky basketball game one day, and I was asking him about culture, and he told me something interesting. He said, John, the highest award we have in our company is every year at the end of the year we give a Culture Warrior Award. And I love that. And I said, talk to me about Culture Warrior. He said, the most important thing in my company is for us to protect our culture. And he said, our most valuable player award is we pick out the one person who's just been avid with that culture and just make sure that they spread it. And he said, that's the highest award. And I love that, a Culture Warrior Award. I thought, man, that works. And that's what you've done. You've got a whole bunch of culture carriers, warriors in your company, because you can't do it. At 11,000, you can't be everywhere. If you don't have them, it won't continue. So the culture stays the same, but the methods change, and the principles, they stay the same. But the way that you do it, you've got to be able to expand with the growth of your company. Of course, he's done it really well.
He's done it really
Beautiful
well.
Interview, wasn't it?
Awesome. It was incredible. And we thank you all so much for joining us today on this session, with Chase Elliott, Rick Hendrick, John Maxwell, Don Yaeger. I am grateful for your time. Now go out and go big.